Hello and welcome back to Take Refuge 3D with me, Peter, and welcome if you're new. Now, Blender has come so far since I started using it way back when, and it's truly a fantastic piece of software. There's so much you can do with this. Now, Blender 4.3, the next release, is in beta right now, so all the new features are locked in. And it's just bug fixes from now until November 12 when it's slated for an official release. So in this video I want to cover some of the coolest new features, some of them that give rise to new workflows, and some of them that are quality of life features that could also change how you use Blender. So just before I get stuck in, if you want to help out the channel and get some great plugins and resources, I have a sale running on my Gumroad, and the first 25 customers will get 25% off any purchase in the Take Refuge 3D store on Gumroad, including my Blender plugins Ngon Pro and MatCaps Forever, as well as the Screw Kit Bash for plasticity and my custom MatCap pack. So if you want to get this discount, you be one of the first 25 customers and plug in the discount code REFUGE25. Now let's get into it. So first of all, I think one of the coolest new quality of life features is now that we have, and this is a little sneak peek of what we'll be looking at later, but now we have image previews. So now if you're hovering over an image, or you've got textures and you don't know what's what down the list, you can hover over it and you'll get a preview. And I just think that's great, because sometimes when you've got a big scene, this list can go on for miles, and being able to quickly see what it is like that is just great. Now that's not, you know, super exciting or anything. What is a little bit more exciting is now we've got some changes to how we do the UI. So we can now do this, and you can sort of have a preview sample of what the new window is going to look like. So if you come down to the bottom, they've actually made the area where this is, it used to have to like twiggle around, but it's a little bit bigger now. So this is where you make a new window, and this is like something that's really cool in Blender that you don't see in that many other softwares. Like the whole docking system and other softwares can be quite janky, so this is quite cool. Now what's also cool about that is, I'll just get rid of my browser and we'll go out of full screen mode, and we'll just pull this across here. If we just drag this over here, it will pop that window out. It's gone onto my other monitor, but we've got a pop out window. Now you've always kind of had this kind of functionality that if you would hold down shift, it would make a floating window of your current window, which is what I often use for sculpting. So the slight difference is that if you do it this way, you've got a window, it actually drags this whole window out into a new space, like so, and it gets rid of it from here. And if you do the shift method, it just creates a duplicate of your current window, so you could have that, for example. Okay, so that's that out of the way. That's a really cool new feature. I quite like that. I just like how smooth that is with the window splitting. So more sort of like UI, but also functionality changes. If we go into sculpting mode now, it looks a little bit different. So we'll just pull this out. And all of our sculpting brushes have disappeared, and we've just got the main tool. So we've got the brush here, paint here, and so on and so forth, and the mask tool here and whatnot. And all of our brushes are now in this, it's like the asset library, or the brush library that's used by the asset library. And you can also change the scale of it here. Okay, and you can filter by names. And you can put the names down the bottom, and you can also change between these different panels like so. So that's really cool, and you can actually see what the brushes do a lot more than what you could over there. So I don't know, like, I feel like this is way more intuitive than before. So let's just remesh this. So I'm just pressing R on my keyboard, and then I'm going to press Control R to remesh it. Okay, and we should have, if we look at the wireframe, yeah, a remesh like there. So we can come and have a look at our flatten tool over here, and we can blob it up, right? But then we could get our face sets, and we can start painting in face sets and smoothing them off, okay? And oh, actually we could let's get our mask tool quickly, and let's just mask off these corners, and then we could go mask or face sets from masked, and then we can clear our mask. Go to mask, clear mask, alt. Oh yeah, I've got it set to alt mouse button 4. We can go back to face sets. We can smooth these off. Okay, and that's all not nice and dandy. And then we can get our cloth filter. Click use face sets and get a cloth brush. Or this doesn't seem to be quite working yet. Oh, just our cloth filter, and then you can just drag on that face set, and you can see that I don't know, we've made something there. So that's pretty cool. I like that. I like that a lot. And we can smooth that off or whatever. So that's really cool with this, the layout. I feel like this is way more intuitive than before. And you can obviously start to add your own brushes to your brush library and whatnot. You probably spend a little bit of time making these cool icons and stuff, but also with this you know, sort of brush assets, if we go back into layout mode, we'll just delete this cube from the file, okay? And then if we go to make a new object, Shift A, and come down to grease pencil, stroke, okay, we get a stroke like that. And if we go into draw mode, okay, you'll see that we've got the same thing here. And there's a few differences to grease pencil. Grease pencil has been improved quite a lot. The first one is that erasing the aspects of the grease pencil, if we come into edit mode, it doesn't delete the points anymore. It used to previously delete the points, which could be really useful, I don't know, for like doing eyebrows or something like that. I'll just go back a step, okay? But where it's really cool now is that grease pencil now supports Geonodes. So we're in draw mode. I'm just going to erase the whole object, okay? And if we go and get our guy over here and we start to draw a line, you can see I'm using my tablet to do this. We've got our grease pencil object, right? It's a curve or whatever. So if we press 1 and go into front mode, we can pick our brush and we can do a line like this, okay? And this now supports geometry nodes. So if we just pull this up and we go into geometry nodes, or if we just take this into geometry nodes in general, okay, we can make a little simple setup for this, okay? So let's create a new geometry node modifier, okay, down here, and we'll pull this up like that. Now what we can do is we can go search curve and curve to and curve to mesh, and we can plug that into there, and you can see that we've turned that into a mesh. And then we can use a profile curve, so we can choose circle curve maybe, or curve circle it's called here, and we can just put that into the profile like that. Now what I can do is, I'm still in draw mode, I can get my pen out, I'll just bring this down a little bit, and I can start drawing like that. And this could change your workflow entirely. So let's take this a little bit further and skip ahead if you sort of you're not interested in this part, and you can see the rest of what I'm going to be talking about. But we'll do a little bit more to this setup and see what we can do. So we can go curve to mesh, okay, and we can go and search mesh to volume, okay, and we can plug that in there, and you can see that very faintly that there's a volume there, and that's our volume. And then we go volume to mesh, okay, and then you get this. We need to up the density of this, okay, and the threshold, and just play around with it. We want a lot more voxels. I might go like it, I don't know, I don't want to crash my computer, but we can go 800. We can up the density maybe to, I don't know, 40. Okay, and you can see now this is creating a whole mesh. And then what we could do is we could add a switch in, because obviously if I try and draw now, it's super laggy. Okay, so if I try and get my pen out and draw now, it is super laggy, and I don't want that. I don't want that laggy behavior. So what we're going to do is we're going to search and we're going to add a switch. Okay, and we're going to put the this into false, and we're going to plug that into true. Okay, so when we switch this off, we can switch our curves, and then we're going to pull that switch and we're going to put it into our group input. So it's sitting here on our modifier. Okay, so it's sitting on our modifier, and probably just give that a cool name as well. So you can press N over here, and down here we can change the word switch to toggle geometry. Okay, and then what we can do is we can switch that off. And how this could be cool, I guess, is let's just change the size of that, and I want to delete this whole thing. And we can, now if we wanted to make some stylized assets, for example, we could get our pen out and we could simply, I don't know, change the scale of this, and we could make a like little spooky fence, like so. And this has got the benefit of being hand drawn as well. And if we just, you know, you can play with your settings as well. If we bring this all the way over here, we can change our stroke, post-processing. We can add a little bit of smoothing to that. Iterations 1, okay. And then we can keep drawing. That's a lot easier to draw now. And let's give this a nice line through here. And something on the ground, okay. And then we just toggle our geometry. And we've got that, and you may need to play with the, you know, these bits and pieces as well, you know, so you may need to fool around with it. Turn up the adaptivity. And just playing around with some of those settings, you can get, you know, a pretty good result. And then you could, you know, add other nodes to this, like, I mean, you can play around with it as much as you like. I mean, I'm giving a very quick example. But you could put a set material in there, so you could choose, I don't know, if we put our material mode on, we could just choose a random material like so, okay. And then we could also go shade smooth, and you could plug that into there, and then you could even, you know, put that toggle over there as well, whether you want it to be shade smooth or not. So I mean, you would need to play with these settings here a little bit to get a good accurate result, but you can see the power of it there. So that's just a really brief setup. I didn't really think about it in advance, but that's something that you could do to now paint with geometry nodes. Okay, so, and then if you wanted to, you could go and mark that as an asset and save the file in where you keep your asset library. So we'll get rid of that. And we'll get rid of these, and we'll move on to the next fun feature of Blender 4.3. Actually, this one isn't that fun. Well, it is maybe, but at the moment, they have now introduced, if we go to System, None, you can change to Vulkan Experimental. I had to play around with it. I wouldn't really have a use for it yet because it's still in a very experimental phase and it doesn't support all of the features. But eventually this will probably replace OpenGL as the main display graphic. So that's maybe not exciting this time around, but it will be exciting in the future. Now, okay, so let's now talk about some changes to the shader editor. Okay, so we've got the monkey in the scene. So if we go for a new shader here, you'll now notice that there is a new thing here, which is diffuse, and then it's got like a roughness slider. And you notice we've already got a roughness slider up here. But what this is the diffuse roughness. So this is like specular roughness, okay? So this is like your shiny reflections. We'll just put a color on that so you can see what's going on. This is your shiny reflections, okay? And that's your specular roughness. That shows your highlights and stuff. So your diffuse roughness, if we pull this up, you might not really be able to see what's going on. If we bring this up to be really rough, maybe it works better in cycles, okay? Yeah, you can see what's going on there. So what this controls is it allows light to scatter without affecting the specularity, so the shiny highlights. So you might want to use this for, let's get a, like, say for example, a noise texture and a color ramp. So you might want to use this for something like, we'll just plug that into there. We'll make sure that our noise is quite a high scale. So it's things like concrete, and pebbles, and you know, if you've got different stones, some of them are shiny and some of them are not. You could make like a diffuse map. And you can see what we're getting there. We're getting like these micro details there. So that's a really cool new aspect to the shader, because it means you've got a lot more control other than just your roughness map to control how light scatters on your object. Okay. Speaking of how light scatters on your object, there's another entirely new shader, which is metallic BSDF. Okay. So obviously we've got our metallic shader here, okay, and that does what it does, okay, but in order to get like realistic metal setups, sometimes you had to create two principled shaders, add in a mix shader node, right? I'm just showing you this for the purpose of an example, okay? And then you'd have to get a Fresnel node, right? And we'll plug that in. We get our how we want our tint to be on our Fresnel node. We make this like a silvery kind of color, right? And then we make this like a purpley kind of color. And then we'd plug our Fresnel into the factor, and then we'd plug that into there. And then we might have to get a color ramp, right? You know, bring our metallics up, and you can kind of see there that we're starting to get this purple tint. So then you'd need to get a color ramp, okay, and then you plug that into there, and you're kind of faking it, and you pull this back like that, and you're starting to get your I don't know, your shiny metal color. So you'd probably not use that purple, you might use it like a gold or a yellow, and you're starting to get more of a shiny metal. So that was quite a big setup, and sometimes, you know, you just do that every single time. Now with this new metallic node, we can just go straight into here, right? It's already set up. We've got these two different colors. We can change our edge tint, we can change our roughness, right? We'll just make a really pink edge tint, and we'll make a really, and it's already set up. You can change the anisotropy, the rotation of that anisotropy, and then even there you've got this more complex version of it. So we've got F82 tint, okay, and then we've got this physical. Now don't ask me what all of these do, but you can now, you know, tweak with these. So if you know what you're doing, or you just want to play around and, you know, have some happy accidents, you can do that there. So this metallic BSDF is a really great replacement, and it seems to be more performant than using the principled shader for metallic. I guess there's less going on. It's not trying to process, like, you know, all of those other inputs as well. And while we're on the subject of shaders, there's one more kind of new shader. I'm just going to open the scene that I set up earlier as an example. Okay, so this is the volume scatter shader. We'll go into principled mode and we'll bring our shader editor down here. Okay, and what you can see here, okay, is this, hang on, I'll select the actual volume object. So we've got our volume scatter node, okay. So now there is more than one type of volume scattering, okay. So this is the one that we used to originally have. This is always what the volume scattering was, and you could play with the density and whatnot. Now, this one's called Henye Greenstein. Okay, so if you now hover over these, it says default phase function for the scattering of light. This was our default option before. And now we've got all of these other options, and if you hover over them, it tells you what they're for. So this one is used for scattering of light in underwater environments. Okay, I want to see if I can turn my compositing on. So this really looks like it's underwater, and I just think that's great. And then you've got this one here, that's for interstellar dust. Okay, that one's called Drain. And this one here is Relay, and that is Rayleigh. And that is mostly used for particles smaller than the wavelength of light, such as scattering in the Earth's atmosphere. And the last one is Me or My. And this one is for scattering in water droplets, used for scattering in clouds and fog. So this one would be great for VDBs and things like that. So I don't know if I'm going to be using these out there in space ones, but I definitely think this underwater one and this cloud one, we bring the density up on this cloud one, see how that looks. I don't know. I think that the Me one and the this one, the underwater one, are going to be super useful. And just in our little, I did a couple of renders. So slot 1, this is the underwater one. Okay, I've got a very slight composite on here. Okay, and just with the exact same settings, in slot 2 I've got our original one, which is really overblown in this situation and probably would need a lot of tweaking. Okay, and then in slot number 3 I've got the clouds one. So and the lighting setup, I'll show you quickly. I just got a gobo light here, and then 2-point lights in the background, and this funny little object. So if we go into rendered mode and we stick this lighting setup on underwater, and then we look at our original one, it's so much different. So I really just think this is a really great new feature, and it's going to make some awesome renders. Yeah, it looks cool. It absolutely looks cool. So moving on, we don't have a new, the next one's not a new shader, but it is a new texture. So let's have a look at this new texture. So I'm just going to bring in a principled, and I'm going to search for this new texture, which is called Gabor texture. Okay, and maybe we'll just go back into material preview mode. We can just plug this value into the base color. We'll give this a mapping node and a texture coordinates node. Okay, and we'll plug this into objects, I think, rather than UV. We can up the scale of this. Okay. And you can see by default that it's in 2D coordinates. You can change that to 3D coordinates. Okay, and we can change between generated and object. I think I prefer object. And then we can just play around with this, and I think you're going to be able to get some really cool shapes out of this. So if we, I don't know, play around with this, play around with this. So there we've kind of got like, I don't know, like it's like a weft almost, like some woven fabric or whatever. And you can then play around with the angle of the light on this as well. Okay, and the anisotropy and all of that, and we can bring our scale back down, and we've kind of got this weft here, and if we shade smooth or bring our subdivisions up, you can see it's kind of got some thing, but I can see how this would be great for t-shirts, but you can then mess around with your scale and frequency and everything. And if we change it to phase, you get a completely different effect, and this could be like really cool for like normals and stuff like that, making, I don't know, landscapes or whatever. So I feel like this is a really cool new feature. Like, it's just something that's, you know, going to be useful, other than just having your noise and your Voronoi and your other procedural textures. A new one is always great. The next thing is that there's a new UV unwrapping algorithm. So if we just unwrap this, you can see I've already unwrapped it before. So if we just unwrap this on the previous angle-based algorithm, okay, you can see that, and I'll just turn our highlights off. You can see that there is some stretching on this, and some of the squares are bigger than other squares, and some of them are smaller than other squares. Now, if we change this UV wrap to the other one, which was conformal, okay, it gets really warped, right? And you get these texture stretching majorly, okay? And then there's a new algorithm now, okay? So if we unwrap this and we go to minimum stretch, which is the new one, you'll see that we get this, I don't know, it looks funky as all hell. And this one has iterations. So if we bring this right down to one iteration, you can see that it is really stretched and really wonky there. But if we up our iterations, you can see that it tries to do its best to get really even squares. So you can see there's a little tiny bit amount of stretching, but really it's negligible and far better than what you got previously. So that's really, really cool. And I think just the final thing that I would like to talk about is that we now have live compositing. So the other thing I want to talk about is that we now have live compositing for something. So let's just take this scene here, and let's just duplicate this desk object a few times. So if we go over to compositing, okay, and at the moment I've got the glare node in there, and let's just add a mist pass. Okay, we'll add a mist pass here. We will also add the have the distance here. So we go back into layout. Let's turn on our this mode, and we can go into compositing always, and we can just look at the mist pass, and if we go over here and go to our mist pass, you can change the start depth, and we could just really, if we lock our camera to the view, do this mist pass here live in the editor. I found that it sometimes doesn't work in cycles at the moment. So if I just go to, well, it is working in cycles right now, but sometimes it wasn't working. But we can edit our mist pass and figure out how much mist we want in the scene. So we can really, in real time, figure out our camera position rather than having to render and re-render and start again. I feel like this is a really cool new feature as well. So I'll leave it there, guys. Don't forget, I've got the sale, Refuge 25 on Gumroad. You get 25% off, and that includes putting multiple items in your checkout basket, and it's for the first 25 customers. So I'll see you guys all in the next one. Tschüss!